my voice was unheard. There was nothing I could do in that home to change the trajectory of where we were headed. Absolutely nothing. I remember being told, because I would argue very carefully, cautiously, and only at certain times about the guns being unlocked. And I remember being at some event in town, and there was the police were set up. They had a table set up. It was a community event, and they were giving away free gun locks. And I wanted to go up to that officer and unload everything, what was happening in my home, and that I needed help. And that if I brought home one of these gun locks, I would be in trouble, because there was no way any gun in the home was going to get locked. And the reasoning was, well, I already told you, but also it was told to me that no child could pull a trigger on such a weapon because it's too hard. We all know that that's a bunch of bullshit. And I knew it was, but I couldn't argue. I couldn't argue against it. So I found this journal entry back in, January 13th of 2013, which talks, it speaks to where I was at the time. And I'll just read it. And I'll leave out names. So if it sounds clunky, it's because I'm trying to leave out names in the moment. Okay. Nursing the baby to sleep. Nap time. Kids are eating lunch with dad. They're going to Grandma and Grandpa's to pick up a door that was his grandfather's on his gun case. He is going to build a gun case and lock it. It's been a contentious subject in this house, in the community, and in the nation. Gun control, that is, not his gun case. All I know is it's been hard after Newtown to have a stockpile of weapons and ammo piled up next to our bed unlocked. I don't feel comfortable having kids here. I also feel uncomfortable telling my friends that we are owners of a semi-automatic weapon. We aren't the only ones, of course, but I'm not sure how many gun owners in our area are as fanatic as he is lately. He's changed over the last 2.5 years. It's coincided with him working from home and having increased access to the internet. Pro-gun, anti-vaccination, apocalypse prepping, fringe news sources, conspiracy theories. He's at idyllic odds with a lot of his friends and has lost some. My interests revolve around the kids. I know he loves his kids intensely, but he becomes blinded often, which leaves me frustrated. So that was written in January of 2013. And when I started to make some real noise and to protest on a larger scale was in 2016, when I knew that I couldn't do it anymore. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I was told by certain people not to go against his parents, that they were too powerful. And I felt that that was an enormous cop-out. And it was inexcusable to even ask me or to even suggest that I not go against this craziness, absolute insanity. It needed to stop. He needed help. And so I was very adamant about, fine, you can hate me. That's fine. But you need to help him. And none of the and I'm going to be very forgiving. How would you deal with this? How would you deal with your child having a weapons store and just boxes and boxes of, not only the stuff that I just told you, like from these internet companies, Be Prepared and Midway and ITS Tactical and Infidel Body Armor and all this shit. Not only that, but the purchases that were made at the grocery store of, 5 tubes of toothpaste at one visit, and at the next, 3 bottles of children's Tylenol. And then the AK-47 that went on the credit card that aren't reflected in the stuff that I have in front of me. And then I had gotten so irritated and upset, and I felt like an asshole. I felt like I was the enemy, the evil one, the one breaking up a family. How dare I? How dare I speak up? But I knew it was the right thing, even though it was the toughest to this day, to know that I've lost half my family because I was done living amongst that fear and hatred. So anyway, I'm going to stay on track. So if your child, you had to go into their home and take all their guns away, take out all of the storage items to get them out of the house because they thought that that was going to satisfy me. That finally I would just shut up and stop complaining. And that happened one day. It was in July of 2016, that all that stuff just disappeared. And I came home and I didn't notice it. And he called me out on it and said, I don't trust your situational awareness. You didn't even know that stuff was gone. And that comment right there it's telling. And every time I hear a comment that undercuts someone who is asking simply for their safety to be first priority, or to be listened, to be heard, to someone who wants to lower the risk of their child dying from gunshot in their own home, these people who feel under attack and out of control and fearful, their first weapon is to insult. And so I've been called a snowflake. He's called me that. And at first, this is my PSA to you. If you're out there doing some advocacy work or you're coming up against someone who is firing back at you, not with facts or logic or just simply insulting you, I know that the first response is, there's a gut feeling when someone says to you that they invalidate your entire being by the tactics that they use. And it diffuses people. Some people just, they can't continue the argument because, being called a snowflake or whatever, it just undercuts your whole platform. And they know that it does. That's their only tactic. Stay in the game is what I'm saying. I would bow out. Every argument I would just bow out with him because I couldn't maintain the same level of energy. And I had other things that needed my energy, like children. So I would cower and I'd disappear. And up until 2015, I would say, I had turned into a total ghost. I actually became really ill at one point and was so anemic that I was ordered to the ER for a blood transfusion, which I couldn't go and get because I had no medical insurance. And so I sought out my doctor friend who tested my blood, and she was the one who diagnosed me with that severe anemia and said, you need to go to the ER right now. And of course, as a friend, and she understood the situation I was in, because I would talk to her and, tell her, oh, today I'm not allowed to get the kids vaccinated. Just, she knew what was going on. Everyone knew what was going on, but no one said anything and no one did anything. And I guess that's where the chip on my shoulder grows into a giant boulder, and I get really irritated when people in that family get mad at me for what I did. They didn't have to live in that situation. They didn't have to live in a situation where I was being asked to read books and watch videos of this person who, oh God, I just wrote it down somewhere too. Where did I put it? He was following, so he had this book called Everything You Know Is Wrong by Lloyd Pye, who is a conspiracy, well, maybe not conspiracy, but paranormal researcher, let's say. And I remember walking through the living room one night, and he said to me, "You should really watch this." Like, why? Why should I watch this? I got to go upstairs and read to the kids, or I'm going upstairs to deal with something. Well, you're interested in human evolution, and this guy, he knows what he's talking about. Well, this guy, he was a proponent of this. Well, he had this belief that he had a skull, and the skull was actually the skull of a man or a child, a male child who had hydrocephaly. And so it was a distorted skull, and he believed it was the skull of the Star Child. And the Star Child is a human-alien hybrid because he believed that aliens intervened in human development, which is why we're so intelligent. The books that I read about evolution do not claim such things. But he wanted me to read the book and watch this guy and, take in his idea of human evolution, and I wasn't buying it. So add in all of that and the small comments and the low-grade insults and the water filtration and the emergency food and the guns and the gas mask and the body armor and the mentality and the, fear everybody, don't go to public places mentality, and the gun always in the pocket. And my kids growing up in that situation, I knew it was time to end, no matter what. So I pulled the plug, and, like when you pull the plug in like a bouncy house and the thing deflates, it's really sad. I mean, things just, that fell apart. But as the pieces fell and were swept away, little by little, it got easier. And now it's much easier. I still have, whenever I see him, my body still shakes. To this day, we haven't lived together for 2 years. I still shake, but not as violently. And he never understood that. He never understood why I was fearful of him. And when we were sitting in therapy together one day, the therapist said, if you look at her and watch her body shake, you will get proof of the fear she has of you, even if you don't believe it. And it was finally then, in that moment, that I finally felt validated in how I was feeling and what I was going through. Now, that is not to say that I don't wish him healing, and I hope he is feeling a little bit better about the world for the sake of himself and for the children. But I'm still not able to confront him directly on any of it, as I am still in the process of healing from it. So I'm going to stop there. I don't know if I got my point across at all, and I do hope you learned something. And I guess my point when I started was to encourage folks to not ignore the perpetrators in these awful events. And I'm not matching my partner to these folks. He's never